Friends, today we're looking at a deck that I have titled Injustice. It is a God tribal deck with the commander, Esika, God of the Tree. I've done an Esika deck before. It can actually, in this deck, make sense to play it as not the Prismatic Bridge as well. So it's a double option card. But I've already talked about that card. So let's just look at the deck. We've got 32 creatures, 21 non-creatures, an average mana cost of 3.6, a lot of white, a little blue, and a smattering of everything else. Also have 10 artifacts. So of those 32 creatures, 27 of them count as gods. We get an instant, 5 sorceries, 10 artifacts, 15 enchantments, 9 of which are gods, 1 battle, and 46 lands. Definitely heavy on the lands because we have to cover our bases if we want to get out Prismatic Bridge, and also, there's just a need for a lot of different mana. So what do we have in the deck? We have a lot of removal, a lot of stuff to inconvenience our opponent, like Candle Trap, Portable Hole, Revoke Existence, Seal Away, Epic Downfall, Banishing Light, Borrowed Time, Expel, stuff like that. Lots of just quick removal, relatively cheap things. In terms of our non-gods, we have Lotus Cobra because we need that mana. And there's some more, but just to finish up this part of the deck, Valki, God of Lies, is our cheapest god. 2 for a 2/1, or he could also come in as Tybalt, Cosmic Imposter, which is just great art, and a super powerful card if you get it late game and you've got the 7 mana to spare. But he can actually be really useful in his 2 mana cost phase as well. Druid class is to help us play an additional land on each of our turns. Mana Rock here with Arcane Signet. Environmental Sciences let us search for a land, a basic land. And I have 1 of each basic land in this deck. So this at least has some chance of being useful. So we looked at those removal things. Now we have gods. We have Heliod, who I will die on this hill, is a terrible commander because it's just not fun to play against. But in a deck that is a god tribal, it just makes sense. It's got to be there. We have Verdane, God of the Worthy, who's also really nice as the legendary artifact. We have Kazuma, God of the Voyage. We've got Bergi, God of Storytelling. We've got Azusa, not a god, but helps us play some lands. We have Klothys, God of Destiny. And we got some more gods below. But what else do we have on this page? We have our 1 battle, Invasion of Theros. When Invasion of Theros enters the battlefield, search your library for an aura, god, or demigod card, reveal it, put it into your hand, and shuffle. So for 3 mana, we get to search for a god. And then it transforms into Ifara, Ever Sheltering, which is a legendary enchantment creature god, which has lifelink and indestructible as long as you control at least 3 other enchantments, and whenever another enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, you draw a card. Now, one thing about the gods, a lot of them are enchantments, like Heliod. This one, not. This one, not. Klothys, enchantment. So we can actually use these gods to draw more cards if Ifara Ever Sheltering comes into play, which is really cool. We also have Elspeth's Nightmare to destroy a creature, exile a graveyard, that kind of stuff. Go blank just for some inconvenience as well. Wayward Swordtooth is here just to play an additional land on each turn. So that, because again, we're heavy on the lands. We got 46 in this deck. Got a little smattering of mana rocks here. And then we've got the other Heliod, the Radiant Dawn, who can transform if need be, but also returns target enchantment card that isn't a god from your graveyard to your hand, which, whatever, not super useful in this deck, but he's a god. He's got to be here, right? God Eternal Kefnet, the zombie god with flying, who doesn't really do much for us in this deck other than fulfill the requirement of being part of the tribals. But whenever you reveal the first card you draw each turn, if it's an instant or sorcery, we can copy it and cast it for 2 less than its casting cost. But we've only got 5 combined instant and sorceries, so it's not super useful, as I said. But when he dies or is put into exile from the battlefield, put it in the owner's library 3rd from the top. So he does keep coming back, which is nice. Thassa, the legendary enchantment god, who is so much fun to exploit. At the beginning of your end step, exile up to one other target creature you control, and then return it to the battlefield under your control. That power is ridiculous. Erebus, 5/6, who needs that devotion of at least 5 to be a creature. Otherwise, he's just a good creature dies, pay 2 life, draw a card, sort of sack engine. Torolf, God of Fury. I'm not going to go over every single one of these cards. I'm just not going to do it. But I am going to highlight which gods are here. So Kolvori is here. Nylea is here, which is nice because creature spells cost 1 less to cast, which also counts for those gods. One of our artifacts is Cosmos Elixir, which is hypnotic to look at, but also helps us draw cards or scry or gain life or all of the above. Sad Golem is here to help us get a basic land when he dies, or when he enters the battlefield, and then can be really abused with Thassa because we could do that every single turn and get all those lands out. Doomscar, destroy all creatures. A lot of the gods have indestructible. Pretty nice. God Eternal Oketra is nice because whenever you cast a creature, you create a 4/4 zombie warrior token with vigilance, and he, like the Kefnet card, goes 3rd from the top if he dies or is exiled. So this one I really like because all those gods also count as creatures, and I'm making zombie tokens, and it's all sorts of fun. Alrund, God of the Cosmos, a card I really like, especially in his Whispering Raven form. God Eternal Buntu is not useful so much for his ability as much as he's a 5/6 menace god who, if he dies or is put into exile, goes 3rd from the top. Turgrid, God of Fright, mostly just there because it's a god. It does work nicely with the sack lands, like the Evolving Wilds and things like that, because the opponent will sacrifice that land to get a card or to get a land, and then it goes into play under my control, and I sacrifice it and get a land too. Believe it or not, this boar is a god. It's a boar god, which is fun, and also 3rd from the top if he's killed or put into exile. Perforus. Other creatures you control have haste. It's pretty much the main thing, and he's also a 7/6 indestructible. God Eternal Ronus. When God Eternal Ronus enters the battlefield, double the power of each other creature you control until end of turn. Those creatures gain vigilance until end of turn. And like so many others, if he dies or is put into exile, 3rd from the top. New god, Osier Kaslam. 6/5 trample. Whenever it deals combat damage to a player, reveal that many cards from the top of your library and put a creature card and or land card from among them onto the battlefield. Pretty nice. Scarab God. Obviously a god. Scorpion God. I really like this one, honestly. Xenagos, God of Revels. Also very fun. Jeru and Hazaret, Human God. Very fun. I actually have a deck based on this that I have highlighted in this very Magic Monday series before, so you should go check that one out too, because that's a really fun deck to play. Golas, Tireless Pilgrim. Not a god, but when he enters the battlefield, search your library for a land card, put it into the battlefield tapped, and then shuffle. And also, if I just have a lot of mana, I can do that ability at the end. But why? Why do we want this? Well, let me tell you. 1, it's really fun to exploit with Thassa and do it every single turn. And 2, there's this handy little card called the World Tree. As long as you have 6 or more lands you control have tapped to add 1 mana of any color, and also pay 2 of each color, sacrifice the World Tree, search your library for any number of god cards, put them onto the battlefield, and then shuffle. In this case, we could be dumping 27 creatures onto the board all at once. And because of our buddy Perforus, wherever he went, they'll all have haste. Isn't that fun? Oh, and because I've got Eternal Ronus, they'll all have double the power and vigilance. So honestly, the World Tree is like a win con kind of card. And Golas helps us get it. Finally, we have Athreos Shroud Veiled, which is super fun because it gets those coin counters on it, and then creatures come back into play under my control, whether they're mine or the opponent's. And the Locust God, which is really easy to exploit as a commander because it's making all these 1/1 blue and red insect tokens whenever you draw a card. But in this deck, he's just another god to throw out there. As I mentioned, one land of each basic type with some really nice, pretty art selections. Particularly found the forest for this one. And then we got a bunch of 2-color or 3-colored lands. And some of them allow scrying, some of them do not. But then down here we've got like the triome stuff. I like those. I actually have a bunch of these in paper that I use in a Joda Dragon commander deck that's really fun to play. And that's the deck. Also this, for 4, sacrifice this card and put an indestructible counter on target god. So some of the gods that don't have indestructible can get it with this Sanctum, which I thought was just a fun little thing to add in. But that's the deck. I hope that was a good overview of it. I know I kind of rushed through it, but even so, it's been 11 and a half minutes so far. And I'm sure you want to get to some games. So I say we should do that after I wish you all a very lovely day, encourage you to be kind to yourselves and each other, and thank you for watching. Let's get to some games.